guys, Brandon here. So this week I want to touch on a topic about breeding boas. So I want to talk a little bit about how I made more boas this year than I have in previous years by actually doing less. So I'm not sure how long we'll have her out, but this is actually my hypo blood jungle female, and she was bred to the Key West albino earlier this year, and she produced some really pretty Key West jungles and hypo Key West jungles that are 100% double het for blood albino. And I just wanted to show her off because, you know, I'm pretty sure everybody checks in to watch videos of the animals and the snakes, not just me running my mouth. So she is not cooperative, and I don't like being in front of the camera as it is, so I'm going to put her up and then continue with the conversation. The main reason I wanted to pull her out is because everybody thinks that you need to have huge boas, and for me it just hasn't worked that way. I've had a lot more success with these smaller females that are not necessarily massive in the terms of them actually becoming gravid, as well as with the babies themselves. This female gave me 13 babies this year, and I want to say there was 1 or 2 slugs and 1 or 2 stillborn in there as well. I'd have to go back and check, honestly. So I've had more success with her being a smaller animal than I have in the past with bigger animals. In the past I've had larger females that either never became gravid, and that could have just been my mistakes, me not being in one location for any length of time, as I spent 8 years in the Marines and I was going every place, and up until recently I haven't really been very consistent with one place for longer than a year or 2 at a time. So those females, the larger girls, I've been met with plenty of slugs, super small litters, and again, like I said, this female gave me 13 solid babies. All the females that I've bred this year have given me pretty good litters in the sense of fertility, becoming gravid, seeing it all the way through with very minimal slugs and stillborns, with the exception of one female, and that was my het VPI, possible het leopard female. I believe a lot of that was my fault. That female did only get 1 lock and 1 pairing, and that was only because later in the season I decided to ultrasound this female, and I seen that she was sitting in like the high 20 millimeter follicles, and they usually ovulate around 40. So I put the male in, they bred 1 time. Shortly after that, he wanted nothing to do with her, and then that was it. So that was a mistake in the sense of I did not notice that she was ready to breed. So putting that male in there late and only getting that 1 lock resulted in only getting 9 babies and a bunch more slugs. So back to the topic at hand, which is producing more boas by doing less. And how I did that was I actually bred the boas this year like I did the ball pythons, and I had a lot of success with it. I also used Vin Russo's book, The More Complete Boa Constrictor. So in here he has a whole segment all about breeding boas and basically food cycling, light cycling, as well as temperature cycling. In my room here I have windows that allow in some natural light, and I think that helped quite a bit with the boas this season, as well as them being a little bit smaller. Temperature wise, I basically had them go from a 95 or so degree hot spot down to an 84 degree hot spot throughout the course of a couple of weeks. The ambient temperature also dropped from what my room is now, which is about 80 degrees, down to the low 70s probably, just from ambient temperatures outside. I do have a space heater in here. However, just being in Maryland, temperatures drop, we get snow, all that stuff, so I think that had a lot to do with it as well. So what do I mean when I say breeding boas like ball pythons? Well, in ball pythons it's very common for people to put their male in with a female, they get that 1 lock, they pull him out, and then that male oftentimes gets some rest, and then he's able to go back in with other females. So I did a very similar thing with the boas this year. I would put the male in, he would court, he would do whatever he needed to do, and then I would pull that male out. I would then feed the female extremely heavily, usually 1 or 2 rats per week, and then that next month I would put that male back in after 3 weeks away from this female. And during that time, that female is getting that food, that female is growing her follicles, and that male is wanting to potentially breed her more. So you put the male back in, he's in there for probably a week, because let's just face it, Boas do not get right into the action like the ball pythons do. So he will usually spend about a week in there with the female. During that time, they will court, they will lock, they will breed, and again, pull them out. So rinse and repeat that same process until that female ovulates or that male loses interest in her completely. So another beneficial tool when you're breeding boas is actually to use ultrasound. Now, I already did a video discussing this about ball pythons. All of the same things apply. Now, I mentioned earlier about the female that had quite a number of slugs this year, and that was because she only got one lock. And that was because one day, generally cleaning cages, I seen she was looking a little bit thicker. I decided to take the ultrasound to her and seen that she had very large follicles. She had not been introduced to a male, and nothing had happened for her so far that season. That's when I decided to take that male, put him in with that female, and immediately they courted, they locked, they bred, and he wanted nothing to do with her after that. I tried putting him in again a couple weeks later, and by that point she had already basically gotten closer to ovulation. In the typical way people breed boas is they basically start to cool them down in October, November. They put the males in, and then they pull them out every once in a while to give them food, and then they wait until the female ovulates and the male shows the female no more interest. And I feel like we're missing huge opportunities and a lot more success by introducing the male once a month versus keeping them in there for weeks at a time. So far this season, we have had 5 litters with the 6th one on the way, which is our fire female that was bred by a blood possible Hep BPI male. As you can tell by a lot of our pairings going forward, we are looking to make a lot more visual bloods, and I think adding fire in there will only enhance the cleanliness and look overall of the adults. So I only mentioned that we should have 6 litters this season, as we had actually attempted to pair 8. I think that's pretty good success as far as the boas go. And having the ultrasound helped, as I was able to tell that those other 2 females that we attempted to breed, they just never started developing follicles. They basically stayed in the 10 to 15 millimeter range, and they never grew despite being introduced to a male and despite an increase in food. So going forward, this is how I will be doing my boa pairings and breedings. So going forward, this is how I'm going to be pairing my boas in the future. I am no longer going to be attempting to breed them for 4 months at a time, leaving the males in there, wasting a lot of their energy and time. So this is how I'm going to be breeding my boas in the future. This is how I'm going to be breeding my boas in the future. I am no longer going to be putting them together and leaving them pretty much together for a period of 3 to 4 months. I will be pairing them once a month, pulling the male, heavily feeding the female, and then reintroducing after a couple of weeks. This seemed to have worked quite well this year, and hopefully in the years going forward it will do the same. How do you breed your boas? Did any of this help you? Does any of it make sense? And I definitely know the phrase, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So if what's working for you is working for you, then by all means keep doing that. However, those things were not working for me within my snake room, and I feel like this year changing things up a little bit and trying something new definitely helped and increased my success with boas. Thanks again for taking your time to watch the video. If you have any questions, do leave those in the comments, and as always, links are in the description.